Hi, Reg.
Enable the panelists to turn on their video.
Okay. So I know I struggle with that, but I'm getting there. That's my view screen. Or ... YouTube switch. Whiteboard apps, raise hand. Always show caption. Captions. And share screen. Participants. Bada bing, bada boom. Invite. Okay, now.
So put up the participants menu, and at the bottom, there's some pull down screens that enable you.
Say that every time, but not on the PC.
Warn you, I'm just starting a Zoom meeting, starting at 5 o'clock.
Hi.
I'll call you back.
Make me a co-host so we can do it that way.
No, Reg. No, I don't. It's paused, so this is not being recorded. I do have the meeting. Just don't let me forget to. Why can't I do this? Desk. Email. Drives me up a wall. Invite people to join the meeting.
Damn
it.
We can tell you're frustrated, Cheryl.
And you should, Reg, Ed, I've uploaded all the videos, and all year I've been struggling with this. But I'm determined to get it right. Speaker, lights up, full screen. Speaker, lights up. Mute. Change panelist appearance. Video start. No, let's start.
There you go. You did it.
Hello.
I guess it comes on when I start the video, so I'm actually
No,
going to turn it.
Actually, it doesn't, and it's not working. So yeah.
So we've got 6 participants. Invite. When I click the invite, it says copy invite link.
No, that's not it. It's the pull down menu here.
There's no pull down menu.
We should practice not when we're trying to start a board meeting.
We should practice when we're not starting up a meeting. I agree 100%.
So let's go ahead and make me a co-host so I can activate it here.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go. Nope, that's the chat.
So, and that's included in the job. But yeah, I mean,
Rich.
Yep.
You're the host.
All right. Thank you. It's the more button here, and in my screen, it's like 6 down here. So should be now working for everybody. There you go, Ed. And Penny, and I see we have Eleanor with us. Welcome, Eleanor. Very nice to see you. And then we have also Chris Moyer and Matt Zajac. I'm going to go ahead and promote them to panelists. And if we need them to answer any questions from Cambridge Housing Authority.
And Reg, do you have the recording on?
And I will turn the recording on here.
Oh.
I'm very talented in forgetting to turn the recording on. So thank you, Cheryl. So I think we have
Chris and Matt.
a
We
quorum.
had Janice a few minutes ago.
And here's
there it is.
Janice. So I think we have everybody here.
Good evening.
Hi, Janice.
Hi.
I'd like our new start time for board meetings here. So, all right, if everybody's ready, I'm going to start, call the meeting to order. So this is a special board meeting of the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. And adequate notice of this meeting was provided by the Secretary of the Needham Housing Authority in a public notice that was prepared and posted on February 1st, I believe. And I'm going to call the roll. We'll have to do everything.
Your packet?
Here. Reg Foster is here.
Eleanor.
Janice Bennett is here.
I didn't hear Eleanor, so Ed Scheidler is there.
Jenny Clark is here.
Okay, we have a full quorum here. I've got a couple of announcements from the chair. I just forwarded around to the board a email we received over the weekend on Monday from Ben Stone with respect to our bridge conveyance request that was submitted a couple weeks ago to EOHLC. This is a critical sort of legal technical thing we need to do with respect to the Linden Street redevelopment project, which allows us to save a lot of money and in subcontractor costs. And DHCD got back to us fairly quickly for them, and light speed for them, approving that request on our part. So that's a huge milestone for us, and is also a vote of confidence from HLC that they feel that we're on the right track here. So there'll be some more reporting on that when we get to the regular meeting on the 15th. I just wanted to mention it here tonight to the commissioners because it came up last night when we were at doing the T-Chalk presentation. It gives everybody a bit of confidence that we're on the right track when we have this kind of support from HLC. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I will send this out to the commissioners afterwards, but Cheryl has received a Mass Commission Against Discrimination complaint, and it's not on the agenda for tonight. It's not, there isn't anything to talk about tonight other than I just wanted the commissioners to know about that, and we will probably address it at our meeting on Thursday the 15th in more detail. It's been referred to our attorneys, of course, and they've been very supportive to Cheryl since we received the complaint. But it's always the policy, as everybody knows, to let the board know when any time there's a legal proceeding of some type, unusual type anyway, that has been filed here. So with those announcements, we have a very short meeting tonight, or let's put it this way, maybe a long meeting with only one agenda item. And our Cambridge Housing Authority consultants who are here tonight, we have Matt Zajac in the middle of my screen anyway, and Chris Moyer, who is the project supervisor and the project manager of our effort with the redevelopment project. We've known this for several months, that there's a big slug of ARPA funding, or home ARP, they call it, funding, American Recovery Act funding. The proposals are due this Friday, and they've been working on putting the proposal together for us. It was forwarded to you over the weekend. I thought it was excellent myself. And maybe I could ask, there's also an accompanying recommendation memo from the Cambridge Housing Authority, which, was very easy to understand from my point of view here. And the bottom line is we're applying for $2.4 million of construction funding that would be used when, as part of the overall financial layer cake, a substantial part of it, when we do hopefully a financial closing on the project late next spring, 2025. So I'm going to just ask either Matt or Chris if you want to just add anything a little bit more, especially to explain for the commissioners and any attendees we have, what are our home funds? What is, I don't even know what the acronym stands for, but more importantly, what is it?
Thanks, Reg. Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Matt Zajac, the Deputy Director of Planning for the Cambridge Housing Authority. Thanks to the board for having us tonight. The Home Investment Partnership Program is a longstanding federal program through which the federal government provides funding for housing and community investment activities. It generally funds the preservation and construction of new affordable housing and supports the activities of community-based housing organizations, which we call CHODOs. In our region, the CHODO is Metro West Housing Collaborative. So home funds flow into communities and projects in two broad ways. The first way is through an as-of-right allocation that goes to each member of the home consortium each year. Your home consortium is composed of several towns in Metro West, and it's led by NEDM. So their community planning department handles all the administrative functions with support from your town planning staff. So each year, NEDM gets a small sum of money sort of as of right to allocate to projects that it finds important. And then there is a second way that home funds can enter a project, and that's through a competitive request for proposals that the consortium issues each year with a larger sum of money, what they refer to as their pool. And the pool is composed of both a sum of money that's set aside for this annual competition, because it can have a really meaningful impact on a project when home funds are allocated in a larger segment. And also, if a community doesn't put forward a clear purpose for its home funds, then those funds would go into the pool. So if, for instance, Sudbury didn't have a project that it could tie funds to, its allocated funds would go into this pool. What we're dealing here is also sort of a third special thing, which is that occasionally consortiums or government entities get special allocations of funding, and the American Rescue Plan, or ARP, provided some of that funding. The RFP in front of us is an effort by the consortium to put its allocation of home ARP money into use on projects as soon as possible. The funding is over $5 million, and it's split into two buckets. Half of it goes to support those community development organizations, the CHODOs, and half of it goes to the development and preservation of affordable housing. The amount that you can apply for any given project is $200,000 per unit. In our application, we've decided to request essentially the entirety of the pool of available home ARP funds. So 200,000 to support 12 units or $2.4 million. We made this decision because we think that the project is compelling. We believe that it's in line with the goals of the RFP, and we're hopeful that the consortium will be interested in making a significant impact on a single project. One feature of the application I wanted to call to your attention is that the home ARP units, so the 12 units that we are attaching this money to, are required to serve a special population. And you're offered several different options for what special population you'd like to serve. The one that our project manager, Chris, has recommended is serving individuals at greatest risk of homelessness. The definition for individuals at greatest risk of homelessness is a little bit complicated, but it essentially falls into two groups. It's households that either have an extremely low income, which is below 30% of area median income, and are already facing a housing cost burden. So they're already paying over 50% of their rent or their income on rent. That's group one. Group two is slightly higher income individuals, those with an income below 50% of AMI. That meets one of several conditions, such as they've recently received a notice to quit their current residence. They are leaving a community mental health institution. And this provides a sort of a broad range of eligible tenants. Looking at the population that Needham Housing Authority serves, both in your current units and your wait list, we believe that the individuals at risk of homelessness category already applies to many of your tenants and the population you serve. So marketing to this group and ensuring compliance will hopefully not pose a major administrative burden. To implement the program when the project closes, which we anticipate to be in 2025, there will be a request to make administrative changes to some of the housing authority's administrative documents in order to provide for the ability to select these tenants for Linden Chambers project. Cambridge has recently implemented those sorts of changes for our first permanent supportive housing project, which is the 116 Norfolk effort in Central Square. With that general context, I would welcome the board's questions or comments.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
No,
I'll just say, excuse me, sounds like a very good program for the people that are certainly in need. And it's great that we found out about this program or these funds.
Eleanor?
Do you have any concerns about our application or any areas of weakness that you see in it?
I don't see, so I think that the two potential concerns for the application are around readiness and size of the allocation. So similar to the EOHLC application that we put in December, funders are looking for projects that are most shovel ready. The home funding source has a lower bar for what they consider shovel ready than EOHLC. So we haven't received any sort of flashing lights that isn't ready. But conceivably, that's something that a funder could come back and say. They could say, well, you don't have building permits yet, but we have a project in Framingham that does. So we decided to fund them.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that a competitor or the funder might say is we wanted to spread our funding around through a number of projects. Instead of a $2.4 million allocation, we wanted to make 3 $500,000 applications. It's my experience working with a variety of home consortiums and administering cities that they generally will work with the application they have. They'll award you a smaller amount. They won't say, we're going to give you $0 because we want to fund the 500,000. They'll come to you and say, what would you do with 500,000? As significant concern. I want to also highlight that because of the timing of our project, we envision a closing in spring, summer of 2025. And this is an annual competition, more or less. We expect we will have another bite at the home apple, which is very helpful if we are offered any sort of feedback about the type of project they want to see.
Great, thanks. And if we were to receive these funds, is there a certain amount of time in which we need to expend them?
Yes, I believe the funds need to be spent. There is a date certain. I believe it's 2028, but Chris, could you
Yeah,
correct?
it's 2030, I think,
Oh,
but yes.
Yeah, it's 2030.
But you know, obviously the people awarding the funding want to see when is the decision time frame, Matt or Chris, that we would expect to get, some decision made. Is it months from now? Is it, end of the year?
Chris, do you know a specific time frame? I can speak generally as movies go.
I don't have the date off the top of my head, but I can check real quick.
My experience has been that it's a several month process, that you might get questions back in a month, and then they would take another month to deliberate.
While you're looking for that, and then I can just make my point without having the exact answer. Generally, what I've learned along the way is the people awarding these funds, while the shovel-ready threshold might be lower, they don't want it sitting around for a year or two or three, before it actually gets used. They want to give it to a project that can put the money to work sooner rather than later. So that's a consideration that might be involved. But again, we can apply again next year, and it doesn't hurt us whatsoever to get on everybody's radar screen in the Metro West Home Consortium that we're getting close to a very serious and very great project for the regional area here. The other thing you use Framingham as a hypothetical, but I think what you meant to say is it's one of the 9 or 16 communities that make up the Metro West Home Consortium. They're the ones that are competing for this pot of money, right? It's not for anybody in the state.
That's correct. This isn't for anyone in the state. It's for organizations doing work within those communities. So, yeah. For instance, we could be competing against an application from a nonprofit developer like POA that's doing work in that community.
So so it's really much more of a local competition than we would be seeing for many of these other funding sources that we'll be looking at the end of the year. And that's both a pro and a con. And so the question is, what other projects are out there that are as far along as we are, or even further along, that might be more attractive to whoever makes the decision on awarding the funds there. So I do agree with Janice. Thank you very much for all the work that's been done by our Cambridge consultants here, and we have to pursue every avenue of funding, because it's a big stretch to try to pull the funding together. I also agree with Janice that the target population is absolutely something we run across all the time. I know this anecdotally from being here. Janice probably knows it a lot more up close and personal, and so does Cheryl, from being associated with the Needham Housing Authority for 20 or 30 years here. And so that's just great, and my understanding also is that it doesn't, these 12 sort of slots or apartments that are kind of designated as home ARP funding apartments doesn't prevent us from accepting other homeless people into our other apartments. It's not a a cap or anything like that, right, Matt? Yeah. And what happens, and I don't think this is I think it may be a ridiculous hypothetical, but what happens when if there isn't, we have a vacant apartment, a home apartment, and there isn't somebody ready to move into it that meets one of these qualifications of homelessness, or maybe that's just too ridiculous a hypothetical to ask here. Can we fill it with another applicant that doesn't necessarily meet the requirements?
That's a great question, Regid. It's something that when you get down to the nuts and bolts of closing the financing on a project, I found that that's a topic that gets a lot of attention between the lenders and the developer. What I expect you'll find is that we'll be given ultimately a loan and regulatory agreement from the consortium that spells out rules on that. And they vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but a typical one would be that you have to market the unit to that population for a certain period of time.
Mhm.
And then you're allowed to lease it to a person that does not meet that definition, but you must then lease the next available unit to a person who meets the definition.
So it's not a physical bricks and mortar designation. There's a plate on the door. I mean, this just metaphorically, that says this is a home apartment. It's just 12 of the units have to be wherever they're located in whichever area of the building have to be reserved for this population. And that we have to sort of maintain a waiting list thing that where we know people who meet the qualifications and they get to sort of jump the line if that's the right thing to do, to be able to occupy a vacant home funded unit. Is that right?
To the first part of the question about whether there's sort of a physical unit, unit 1 is a home unit, unit 2 is not a home unit. There are two types of home funded units. We call them fixed and floating. And fixed units are ones, so you go into a project and you're able to say from day one, units 1 through 12 are the home units, and always will be. Always have to have someone who meets the definitions in those units. And floating is the alternate concept where those, as I described, as vacancies occur, what the home unit is, may float around the building. As long as there's an individual meeting that definition in a unit, it can be a home unit.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, when you're going through that closing process and doing those documents, what we would be advocating for is the floating units, because they're administratively easier for the management company. To your second question about the population, the typical process with when you have a segment of units that are serving a special population, such as individuals experiencing or coming out of homelessness, that the funder will tie your referrals to a particular source. So it may be the case that we are asked to take referrals from a list such as the CCAN, which is individuals who have been served by homelessness services. And the individuals will meet the definition, and they will also meet the definition of low-income housing tax credit projects, and it'll make it easier for the housing authority to lease up. You don't necessarily have to maintain a separate home waiting list. You can utilize other resources, is the core point.
Mm. And then just following up on that, this isn't the only sort of rental application management, tenant applicant waiting list management thing that will need to be done when we have 136 unit tax credit finance building. We have to maintain 72 of those units as deeply affordable, because they're replacing the ones that we're tearing down, but others have to meet the requirements of the tax credit financing, which might allow somebody with 40 or 50% of AMI to be eligible for applying. Is that right?
That's correct. So the ultimate project, when we are nearing completion, will have produced I call it a unit matrix, and it shows all the units in the building and what are the requirements for each of those units. So these 10 need to be at individuals at 30% of area median income. And these next 10 need to be at 50% of area median income, and also meet the home definition. And all those are baked then into a management and marketing plan that we create and present to the developer and owner. That document then becomes the guidebook for when a vacancy happens. What list do I go to? What resource do I go to in order to find the tenant to release the apartment?
So all of that is a bit more complicated, and then our already complicated systems that we have for the state and federal. And also it has to be done right, because I assume we get audited on that at the end of every year to make sure that we're in compliance with all of these different, ands, ifs, and buts and rules. I'll call it rules that apply to applicants and income and eligibility evaluation.
There's one thing that funders love, it's forms proving that you did what you said they were going to do. So there will be tenant file audits from our equity investor to expect regularly. And then it's my experience that the home consortium will also have some lease up and annual paperwork that they ask for.
Cheryl, do you have any questions or comments you want to throw in here?
No, it's just excellent, excellent work from Cambridge Housing Authority. Very, extremely impressive. We continue to get the best from Cambridge Housing Authority, moving us along towards getting the funding we need to shovel ready Linden Chambers. So thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chris. Excellent
Just have a
work
question.
as usual. Yeah.
Go ahead, Eleanor.
And just to clarify, with these eligibility requirements, that nobody currently living in these units will be displaced by any of these eligibility requirements. Is that right?
That's correct. I would expect that many of the existing tenants could qualify for this definition, but even assuming 100% of them don't, we could use the new increment of units to fulfill the requirement.
Right. Thanks.
And I just want to sort of close. Please take more questions if there are any, but I want to acknowledge Chris for the great work he did on this application. He put it together very quickly and thoroughly, and I feel really great about our chances.
Yeah. You got a reg tweak memo that was a new record low number of tweaks here, so congratulations. I'm going to move to the vote.
Let me interrupt here, Reg.
Yeah.
I think we should congratulate ourselves for having the intelligence to select Cambridge Housing Authority as our guidance, because they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Congratulations, guys.
Excellent point, Chris. Ed, I mean, thank you so much. I'm going to move the vote in just a second. I just looked this up quickly, just as a point of information for the minutes and for us to know. The members, the communities that are members of the Metro West Home Consortium, and you don't bother to write these down because you can look it up yourself easily, but it's sort of interesting. Bedford, this alphabetical order: Bedford, Belmont, Brookline, Big Housing Authority, Concord. It is Framingham, and I was wrong, so Matt was right. That's a very big housing authority. Lexington, Natick, Needham, Newton, Sudbury, Waltham. That's a pretty big-ish one. Watertown and Wayland. So a mix of, one or two large, middle-sized to big ones, and mostly towns that are sort of like us are smaller. So it's an interesting hodgepodge. It's going to make me go look for what other projects they've got going, just out of curiosity here. But that's whom we're competing with here. And I think that's kind of an interesting data point here. All right. We have a recommended language on the motion in our recommendation memorandum from Cambridge. So I'm going to go ahead and read it and make the motion that the Board of Commissioners of the Needham Housing Authority certifies its approval for the NHA Executive Director to submit an application to the West Metro Home Consortium to request $2.4 million in home ARP funding for 12 units to support the construction of the redevelopment of the Linden Street property pursuant to this memorandum from the Cambridge Housing Authority to the Needham Housing Authority dated February 2nd, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second from Janice Bennett, our resident commissioner. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Call a vote here. Reg Foster votes yes.
Eleanor Evans votes yes.
Ed Scheidler votes yes.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
I think we all vote aye. Well, I think that passes unanimously 5-0. Before we close, Chris, do we need to enclose minutes or any kind of something with the application of this decision, or can we just assert it in the application?
We don't need any minutes, but there's a signature needed from Cheryl.
Okay.
So there's a couple other pieces that I'll need, so I'll reach out separately about that.
Super. All right. I think we're at the end of this special board meeting. Is there a
Can I
motion?
just say something?
Yes, certainly.
This is for you, Eleanor. It's so great to see you looking well.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. Amen.
Thank you.
Yes.
And so do we have a motion to adjourn on that upbeat note?
I so move.
And we have a
Seconded.
second from Ms. Kirk and Mr. Scheidler. Hearing no objection, I will call the roll call again. Reg Foster votes yes.
Eleanor Evans votes yes.
Ed Scheidler votes yes.
Penny Kirk votes yes.
Janice Bennett votes yes.
And we are adjourned. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
everybody. Our
Thank-
next meeting is on the 15th of Thursday. We've moved the time to 5 o'clock. I believe it's in the Seabeds Way conference room, or community room. So see you there. And then have a nice evening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
I said the next three words. Good night, everybody.